What's up, guys? In this lesson we're going to be going over loops, and what a loop is, it's basically a sequence of instructions that is continually repeated until a certain condition is reached. Now loops go hand in hand with arrays because arrays are basically a sequence of variables, so with a loop you can loop through the whole array, going through each variable in order to fulfill a specific goal or function that you wanted to fulfill. Now we're going to start off with an example that makes use of loops and kind of demonstrates how it can be very useful and efficient. So let's say that we are a business owner and we have several employees under us that we have to pay a salary to. And let's say we had a great year and we want to increase their salary by, let's say, 10%. So we're giving them a 10% raise. And this can be very tedious if we're doing it individually, which is the wrong way, but I'm just going to show you for the purpose of the video. So we're going to create several employee salaries. So employee 1 equals, let's say, 10,000. Employee 2 equals 20,000. Employee 3 equals 30,000. Employee 4 equals 40,000, and employee 5 equals 50,000. Okay, so now we have a bunch of variables of the employees' salaries. If we wanted to increase the employees' salaries by, let's say, 10%, we would have to go through each individual and literally add the 10% to each one. And how we would do it is, let's say we're doing an employee 1. We would just do employee 1 equals employee 1 plus employee 1 divided by 10, which would get the 10%. So this what this is doing, it's basically doing employee 1, which is 10,000. It's redefining that variable as employee 1, which is 10,000, plus employee 1 divided by 10, which would be 1,000. So it would equal 11,000. So let's see. And yep, we got 11,000. So the formula works, except the only problem is we would have to repeat this for every single employee. So if we have 5 employees, we just have to do the same exact process every single time, just by changing the numbers. You can see that this process can be very tedious, and I'm just doing it for you in order to demonstrate that it's not fun doing this, and it can be very time consuming, especially if you have, let's say, hundreds of employees. You can see how it would take a long time. So anyways, these would all print out 11,000, 22,000, 33,000, 44,000, 55,000. And yeah, that's what we got. So now we can use loops in order to make this process a lot easier and a lot quicker and a lot less tedious. So the first loop I'm going to demonstrate is a repeat while loop. Basically what it is it's a loop that repeats the same thing while this condition is still valid. So the condition we're going to do is while index is less than, well, first we have to create the array. So we're going to create the employee salary array. We're going to put var in front, and we're going to make this equal to, and we're going to do 10,000 for employee 1, 20,000 for employee 2, 30,000 for employee 3, 40,000 for employee 4, and 50,000 for employee 5. So now we have an array, and we're going to make a variable called index, which is basically just the index of where the array is, and we're going to initiate it at 0. We're going to do index is less than employee salary dot count, so the index can never go over how many employees there are in the array. So now that we made the while, we're going to make the while condition. We're going to make the repeat function. Okay, so we're basically just going to copy this, add it right under repeat, and instead of employee 5, we're going to make it employee salary at the index of whatever the variable index is. So I'm going to do this and I'll explain it real quick. So now what we have here is we have a index that starts at 0 and an employee salary array that has all the employee salaries in one. Now this index 0 would demonstrate employee 1's salary, which is 10,000. Index 1 would indicate employee 2's salary, which is 20,000, and so on and so forth. So the function is going to start at, the repeat function is going to start at employee salary index 0, because index equals 0 at first. So this would be index 0, which is 10,000, and it's going to run the function and get 11,000 as the salary after the bonus. Then, since index is still smaller than salary count, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, since index is smaller than 5, it's going to repeat, and then it's going to go to index 1, which is the employee 2, which is 20,000. It's going to get 22,000. It's going to repeat all the way until the index is 5. Once it's 4, once it's 5, it's going to be it's not going to be less than, so it's going to stop the function and it's going to stop the while loop. That's right. We forgot to increment the index. So every time the repeat function gets called and the loop gets ran through, we would have to do index equals index plus 1, which basically adds 1 to the index in order to make it go to the next index, which will go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now there's not going to be an error. We're going to run it, and we're going to see that the loop, here it tells you how many times the loop ran. It ran 5 times, and that makes sense because there's 5 variables in our array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we're going to print out the actual array, and we're going to do print employee salary, which is array, and here it's going to print it out for us. As you can see, all of the salaries have been increased by the bonus, so 11,000, 22,000, 33,000, 44,000, 55,000. So, that was a lot easier. It's a lot less code, and it was a lot easier than having to go individually each one. But to emphasize how essential this is, we're going to make a ton of integers in order to demonstrate how easy this can make it. So, whoops. So here we have a ton of integers, and it would just take a long time in order to go through each one and add 10% to the salary. So now we're just going to literally hit run, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to add 10% to each one just through the while loop. We don't have to worry about typing each one out. All we got to do is basically edit this in order to do whatever we want to do to all of the salaries. However, there's another loop that is a lot more it's a lot easier to use, and it's a lot more popular than the while loop. This is called the for in loop. Basically, it goes for I, which is the index, in, and then we're going to do employee salary dot count, and then inside we would do the function, but actually we would have to do 0 dot 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 employee. So this basically means for I in 0 to whatever the employee count is, which right now would be whatever number of variables are in this. It would do I would basically be the index, and it would just go through each index of the employee count, which would be this. Okay, so inside we're basically just going to put the same exact formula with the index, except this time index, we'll just change this to index so this works with it. We're going to delete this because it's basically doing the same thing, and we're going to put print under this, and it's basically going to do the same exact thing. Okay, we have an error. Okay, so the problem here is we forgot to add a less than sign, because the 0 is going to be, it's always going to be less than, the index is always going to be less than employee salary count. So it's going to go basically from 0 to whatever the employee salary count is. And once again, I messed up. It's just 2 periods, not 3. And there we should have it. So the loop ran 16 times, which is the number of how many variables are on here, and it worked. It basically did exactly what the while loop did, except with the for loop we basically just have to code a lot less, and it's a lot easier to use, but it does basically the same thing. However, it is far more popular than the while loop, and in my opinion it's a lot easier to use. So that's all for this lesson on loops. I taught you about while loops, about for loops, and a little bit more about arrays. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and see you in the next one.